On today's question of faith, what if I can't find godparents for my baby's baptism? Hey everybody, this is Question of Faith. I am Deacon Mike. I am the Director of Young Adult Ministry here in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damien Ferentz, Vicar for Evangelization.
And I'm Christy Cabanis, Director for Missionary Discipleship.
Yay.
Hi.
Christy's back.
Yay.
So,
Buona Festa, as the Italians say. It's feast day, Pope John Paul II.
Correct, yeah. Today's his feast day that we're recording on. And
well, when I was a child, I was born in 1976, so my first memories, and they say you actually don't start developing memories until you start developing language.
Correct.
Which is why your earliest memories are usually around like 3 or 4, because that's when you first started talking. So as far back as I could remember, it was always John Paul our Pope, Anthony our Bishop here in the Diocese of Cleveland.
Sure.
And throughout all the 80s and throughout the 90s and up until about 2005, that's what we heard. So I don't know where you are all from, but we're close to each other in age. Do you remember John Paul I or Paul VI?
I do. I remember both of them, yeah.
Because are you 53?
4.
Okay, and I don't ask a woman's age, but
We're the same age, Father Damien.
yeah, we are?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, because we're cool like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can remember the first Pope I remember seeing like on television was Paul VI, and it was probably, I'm trying to remember if I saw him or if it was when he died. Like that was my first, because I certainly remember both. I remember him dying, and I remember John Paul I dying very quickly. Obviously, with
a month.
JPII. Yeah.
We have to ask some of our staff who are conspiracy theorists. That came up at lunch last. I wonder if they think about that. I'll ask.
The John Paul I one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have thoughts. Yeah. And then
Funny.
And I remember, obviously, the election of John Paul II. What I really remember is Cardinal Cook, who was the Archbishop of New York at the time, and my pastor, Monsignor Troy, they went to Rome to get the Pope to bring him to New York.
Oh.
Wow.
And to go to Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium at the time. And so I remember the papal masses at Yankee and Shea Stadium. I did not attend those.
Is this
I watched them
79?
on television. Yeah, it was around there, yeah. The reason I remember this is horrible, is because I have a 1979 New York Mets yearbook, and there's a big spread in there about John Paul II's visit. So that's how I always remember the year.
The USCCB posted a really great video today of him. I think he was visiting Catholic-U at the time. It was also that 79 visit because he hit the Eastern Seaboard.
Yes, that's right.
And he gave a nice little fervorino to the young people about not being afraid. That was his big theme, do not be afraid, do not be afraid. I remember being at the seminary my freshman year when he came back and watching on TV, because I think he did the Eastern Seaboard again at that time. But yeah, the podcast isn't on John Paul today, but I did want to honor him because he was
and you've seen him live. You saw him live a couple times.
Yeah, I met him twice, in 99 and 2004, both as a seminarian. But my most memorable events with him were World Youth Days, because I never had gone out of the country before. And in 97, I went to France, in 2000, Rome, and then 2002, I know you were there too, in Toronto. Did you ever do a World Youth Day, Christy?
No.
Yeah, those were so formative for me, because it was like getting out of Cleveland, getting out of Ohio, and getting out of the United States and seeing the Church Universal and just being like, I am part of something huge and old, and I love this. And it was great. And he was so good with young people, because I remember seeing pictures of him as a kid and thinking, this guy has nothing to do with me. But then when I saw that he was a playwright and he was an actor and kayaker and all that stuff, and he was good with young people, that really inspired my ministry. So, Buona Festa, as the Italians say.
Yeah, and I can remember Central Park in New York, that he had a big mass in Central Park, and I went to that. And that
95?
was it had to be around. It had to be around there.
So.
Yeah, and then I can remember being like way up on top of a hill, but we still had a really good view of the altar and of him, and he was very enthusiastic at that. And then 2002 was sort of the end of his life in Toronto, so he was a little less active, maybe.
Yeah, his mind was sharp, but his body was really.
But he passed right in front of me at 2002 in Toronto.
He didn't die in front of you.
I know. I literally was thinking that he
passed
died.
by you. He passed by you.
Yes, thank you very much.
He passed right in front of you. You're like, he didn't. He was almost gone, and then he passed right in front of. What the heck? Yeah. Oh well.
Every once in a while, right? Mike just says something awkward. But yeah, no, he passed by me in the Pope Mobile, and
Super
it was
cool.
sort of right in front of me too. It was really cool. I remember my friend Cindy had said, I think I've talked about this before. She was like, I had never been to World Youth Day, and we heard all this screaming when we were inside Exhibition Hall, and she said, I said, well, what's all the screaming? She goes, motorcade's coming. And Cindy had been to like half a dozen World Youth Days, right? And so I was like, oh yeah. And we went back to our conversation, and Cindy said, wait a minute, you've never been to World Youth Day, right? And I said, right. And she said, well, then get out there, man. What's wrong with you? And I was like, Cindy, I worked in the media. I've seen celebrities. I that doesn't get me much. She goes, Mike, it's the Pope.
Yeah, right.
And I went, yeah, okay. And I don't know how I got all the way up to the front of the stanchions, but I did.
Wow.
And he just pissed right in front of me. I was so moved, I called my mother. It was before camera phones and everything else, too, so I don't have any pictures of it. But, I've gotten a few papal drive-bys now from all three, from John Paul II, Benedict, and Francis. Francis was probably the closest of the three, but John Paul II was pretty close in Toronto. I mean, I probably could have, if I didn't think that the Secret Service would, chop my arm up, I probably could have touched the Pope Mobile. Yeah,
I met the Pope John Paul II twice, and Francis when Bishop Perez was here and came in on his ad libitum visit. In 2005, I was in Germany, and Pope Benedict was Pope, and we went to a gathering with priests and seminarians, and he came down the aisle and he had his hands up like a good German Pope, and I went to grab his hand, and man, they pushed me right back in my pew. Yeah, so I mean, I touched it a little bit, but it was not like he shook my hand. It was like I was assaulting him, and then I was pushed down in the pew. So I wasn't assaulting him. They just, whatever.
He's dying in front of me. You're assaulting him.
Yeah.
Boy, we're getting all kinds of trouble today.
You guys are,
Yeah, sorry.
Christy's the only one who's good.
That's
here.
a weird feeling for me. I'm not usually the good one.
Yeah.
Well,
we're all sinners.
Anyway, we'll show people how good you are, because our question today is from someone who they actually had two questions. One was, they said that when did the church start requiring godparents? Well, the answer to that is the 2nd century, because way back they needed sponsors for baptism, and they picked people from the community to do that. So the answer to that question, straightforward, is the 2nd century. But the second part of their question was, I'm having a hard time finding godparents for my child's baptism, because either everybody in my family either didn't make their confirmation, or they haven't been married in the church, or there's some other impediment to them being a godparent. So what to do?
Or they're not active or something.
Right, that's what I mean, yeah. So, what to do? And so we brought Christy in. It's sort of like walk us through that. Let me say, we talked about this yesterday a little bit. The first thing we wanted to say was to dissuade people of the notion that the godparents are the people who will take care of your children if something should happen to you.
Right. We have a law system for that. So you have to actually put that in your will. You have to have it notarized. The legal system is who takes care of that, not the church.
Right. Yes, exactly. Now, they could be your godparents should you deem it so. But
Right, but
they're
that
not
has to be written up somewhere else.
That has to be written somewhere else,
Yeah,
correct.
not this,
Yes.
not this.
So what to do about the actual question here?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things to think about, first off, is this idea that the godparents came about in the 2nd century. And Mike, you said it funny, so I'm going to just play on that a little bit. You said that people would have picked their godparents then to sponsor them. I think it's the other way around. I think we're not thinking about this through an evangelization lens, which is that actually you got brought into the church because someone else was evangelizing you, and then when you said, oh yes, I want to accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, they brought you to the church and brought you in, and then your baptism happened, your initiation happened through that. So I also that is helpful for us to think about in who we would want to be our kids' godparents, because what we're hoping for is an example in the faith, people other than the immediate parents of an individual, to help teach them the faith, hand on the faith to them, and be exemplars in this person's life. So when we think about it in those terms, it makes sense then why the church is demanding that these people be initiated and practicing members and all of that sort of thing. So then I urge folks, look at your parish community. Is there somebody around you or an exemplar that's been in your life that's led you to faith and a deepening of your Catholic faith that you could ask to be this role model in your child's life, right?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I mean, you want people to do things who do things well, right? I mean, that's just a simple thing to look at. Like if I were choosing a healthcare proxy, I wouldn't choose someone who doesn't know anything about healthcare.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Right? That's not going to work out well for me or anybody else.
You're not going to call your dog sitter about that?
No, I'm not going to call my dog sitter about that. Well, maybe. I mean,
depends.
Depends on who the dog sitter is. But yeah, I mean, that's the idea. I mean, I think everything you said was right on.
Right. So I just think that sometimes we get a little bit narrow and we're thinking about how that relationship should play out, but ultimately is the exemplar in the child's life. And it is somebody that you do want to see an ongoing relationship with. So in some ways it is the low-hanging fruit to go with immediate family members, aunts, uncles, grandmas, brothers, sisters, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think you could really start to expand your community that way of inviting other people to be the godparents. And
it's more than an honor, right? It's a responsibility.
It is a responsibility. Yes.
You're not just picking some. I know so many people say, "Oh, I was so honored to be a godparent," and I'll say, "Okay, well, what do you do for your godchildren?" And and they're like, "Well, I mean, I was there at the baptism," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you have an ongoing role now. Now what do you do?"
Yeah.
Right. Also,
and I should say that not every godparent does the exact same thing.
Sure, of course.
Oh, no.
So my godparents were my parents' best friends.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't related, but I called them Uncle Jim and Aunt Mary because we visited them. She lives right over by Forest City Brewery. My godfather's passed, but my godmother's still alive.
She's delightful too. We've
Aunt
met
Mary.
a couple times.
Yeah, and we would go after Mass every Sunday. We'd go over there, so I'd see them all the time. Now I have 13 godchildren, but I don't treat them the way that my godparents treated me. And I even told their parents, I said, I can't remember all these things, but what I can do for them every day is I'll pray for them by name, and I'll be the best priest I can be. And then when I see them, I'll treat them kindly and charitably. That's the best I can do. And their parents are like, that's fine, that's cool. So that's what I do. But I think it's different because I have some friends who only have one or two godchildren, and they remember and they're kind of like a pseudo aunt or family member in a way. So both are being responsible, but I think just so the parents know that what you can offer and what you can't offer, and that's out on the table at the beginning is good and it's helpful. And you only actually need canonically one godparent. Correct. So, and if you have two, it has to be a man and a woman, and they both don't have to be Catholic. But if the person is Catholic, they have to be fully initiated in a proper marriage in this. But if they're Christian, they could be a Christian witness. Mm-hmm. But a Catholic can't be a Christian witness. If you're a Catholic, you have to be like fully initiated Catholic.
Right,
so,
and you do, even if there's a Christian witness there, you do still have to have a godparent. Now, I also are you guys familiar with the Hispanic community where you have like a gazillion godparents?
Yeah, we should bring Hortensia in for
that.
Yeah,
you
said
should,
that.
because I learned that whenever I was working for the Archdiocese of Baltimore, and I was like, what are you guys talking about?
Compadres.
Yeah, the godparent of the cake and the godparent of the dress and the godparent of the party,
Yeah, it's not canonical, but it's great that the idea is it takes this whole community to raise people in the faith, raise children in the faith. So that's all lovely.
In poorer communities, like usually the person who's the godparent of the cake and the godparent of they're the ones who have to buy those things.
Right, exactly.
And no one could afford all those things on their own most of the time, so they split it up amongst the community.
But I still think that that's exactly the way that we want to be living our Christian life, right? It should be, you could almost have these folks doing these other things. The other thing that I want to point out here, too, is that in canon law, it does suggest that whenever you get to confirmation, that your godparent also be your confirmation sponsor. So I also want to just think about the longevity of the people that are going to be in this child's life and around. I think that obviously it's adults, so there's going to be some sense of like at some point maybe they're not going to be around anymore.
Right. That was the case for me. My godfather and my godmother were both dead by the time I was confirmed.
So I mean, and it's not, you don't have to do it that way. It's just the suggestion that it would be highly favorable to do this. So I just think that when we're thinking about this sense of our community, I think that we can expand that beyond. And isn't it good to have multiple mentors in your life?
Certainly.
So
well, I've done a few weddings. I don't do a lot of weddings because of my current ministries, but I had a few this summer, and godparents played a prominent role in the wedding liturgy, whether it was reading or bringing up the gifts. And that's really cool when then a lot of times they'll seat the priest with the parents and godparents at the wedding reception. Like, oh, my goddaughter, my godson. It's really neat. It's good relationship to foster.
Yeah.
And necessary.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think my godfather was my mother's brother, and the other thing too that I ran across, I actually looked this up last night. I looked for pictures of my baptism because I wanted to see who was there, and for a long time, parents generally didn't go to the baptism because the mother was usually recovering because baptism happened pretty quickly. And so usually mom was recovering. There was also this idea of being churched, like you had it was sort of like, it goes back to the Jews, the ritual cleansing, after childbirth. And so the woman wasn't supposed to come to church until that had taken place, or the temple in the Jews' case, right? Mm. Yeah. So my mother's not there. It's my sister is there with my aunt and my uncle, who are my godparents. And so I was like, well, it's interesting. Yeah. What, are you wrecking the joint over there?
Yeah, it's a boom mic. I was just trying to adjust it. And it went, so. Deacon Mike, you are dressed presidentially today.
Yeah, I am. You're right.
Could you share with us what you're doing later? I think it's interesting because it's one of your jobs.
So tonight the bishop and I will be attending the Interfaith Sukkoth at Park Synagogue. And so they basically bring people in for, into the sukkot, the outdoor sort of structure that they build. Where they bring people in and have a little meal together, invite strangers in. There's a great movie about this holiday called Ushpishin, which is the visitors. It's hysterically funny, and it's subtitled, just so you know. It's in Hebrew, but it's a great movie if you want to check it out, and then you'll learn all about the holiday. But yeah, we're going to that tonight at Park Synagogue, so it'll be fun. Cool.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't been keeping up, Deacon Mike received a new ministry as part of his work for the diocese, and he is the director of Interfaith and Ecumenism. Is that the official title?
Yeah, Ecumenical and Interfaith. The bishop's delegate for Ecumenical and Interfaith Relationships.
There it is. Yeah. So that's cool that you're going with them and representing the diocese.
Director of Ecumenical and Interfaith Relationships, to make it easy.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, so I get to work with everybody, in the diocese who were not us, right? All those kinds of things, which is fun. So we're actually working on the Catholic-Jewish
Colloquium,
yes, which will happen in April. So we have a meeting for that next week.
Is that at the seminary this year, or is that
no, it'll be at the place we're going tonight, I believe.
Oh,
yeah, because it flips every year.
Yeah, they follow. Yeah, 1 year it's held at the synagogue, 1 year it's held at the seminary. So it'll be fun. So Sister Mary McCormick and I are the Catholic reps on that. So it'll be fun. And so, I'm looking forward to. I have to drive the bishop tonight, by the way.
Don't get him in a wreck.
Don't give him a heart attack either.
Also true.
He's used to driving with Father Eric Garris, so I think he'll be fine.
He drives like a madman. Yeah, you're right. I'll be fine.
Mike drives like someone's grandma. So
I do. Good. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. We'll be late with me driving. That's the thing.
He won't tell you this, but he likes Megadeth. So when he gets in the car, you should have that on the radio. And he'll just start banging his head a little bit. You'll see.
Yeah, right.
I'm actually going to do this now.
Oh my God.
Father Damien told me you like this.
Father Damien said you like Megadeth. Yeah. See how that goes. Try it.
I'll see that. Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Hey, church. We usually talk about a church in Cleveland, but I'd like to talk about this one. I read this in the Pillar today. A church in New Hampshire, St. Martin's Church, which looks like they're a clustered parish between St. Ignatius of Loyola and St. Mary's. This St. Martin's Church have begun 30 days of prayer for our country leading up to the election on November 5th. And so in the past, the pastor, Father Andrew Nelson, has held a prayer vigil the night before the election. This year, him and his staff wanted to do something more, so they've been gathering people since October 6th, every evening at 6:15, and they join not for one candidate, but for our entire country. And they give out people a prayer booklet, and they do like a little devotion every night. I thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah. We'll have to remember that 4 years from now because we're halfway through the 30 days. Yeah. Unless you want to start like a 12-dayer.
Or you could do a novena.
You could do a novena.
And also, I just want to plug some friends of mine that have a website that's called Pray More Novenas. So, so go there and you can do that.
There's a little Facebook group that I'm in that they do pray more novenas all the time.
Huh.
So,
I was not a big novena or fasting guy except for Lent until we started 9 nights of night prayer, and then I would fast from drinking for 9 nights for the parishes, and then once 9 nights was over, I've done 2 novenas since, and I picked that up from the Byzantine nuns out in Burton because they do fasting and like mortifications, and I don't mean that in like a gross way. I mean it in the most traditional way, like give up Instagram or something.
Yeah.
For this, that you're not just waiting till Lent to do these things. You could, drive out demons with prayer and fasting. So I think that's become a new twist, a new wrinkle in my spiritual life.
I'm about to do so. My trainer suggested this to me. I wanted to know what you guys thought of this. I'm going to do something called the Hard 75. And so what it is you make a list of 6 things that you have to do for 75 days, no matter what. And if you miss one of them on one day, you have to go back to day 1.
Oh.
Until you can complete the 75.
Ooh, see, that would be a different. When you say it to me, I have a rebel personality, which means I don't like rules and I like to break them.
Yeah.
So,
well, you make the rules in this. This isn't somebody else giving you 6 things.
I still don't. I definitely don't abide by my own rules. That's the whole thing. But knowing that I would restart back to 1. The achievement, I think, of the 75 would motivate me, so that helps.
Yeah, so that's where I am. So I have to come up with 6 things to do.
I'll help you.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Be careful.
No, I have most of them already, so it's...
Listen to Megadeth every day.
Megadeth every day.
I don't know why I'm saying it's David Mustaine. I don't even
idea.
know. No, I probably would. He's a Christian now, though, David Mustaine.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right.
Anyway. So readings for this week. Let's see. It's the 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Bartimaeus comes up in the Gospel this week. A blind man who says, I want to see. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus says to him. He says, Master, I want to see. He says, go your way. Your faith has saved you. I like the request there. What do you want me to do for you? And then he boldly asks, and ask and you shall receive, as God tells us. So
I like the responsorial psalm. The Lord has done great things for us. We are filled with joy. And I think it's important to recognize the good things that the Lord has already done for us communally, but also us individually. Because if you can name some of those in your past, then you can trust when you're going through hard times currently. All right, the Lord's been good. He's always kept his promise. He's been faithful. Like, this is the story of the Scripture. So I can trust that he'll do that again, even if I'm not feeling that right now.
Very nice. Yep.
Yeah.
Anything on your end, Christine?
Well, I have 2 things I want to say. One is in the reading, I feel like St. Paul, this is a really great reading of we're all called to be more like Jesus, but this one is kind of convicting of, like how Jesus deals with the ignorant and the erring, and he takes on the weakness and all of that sort of thing. So I feel like that's a tough reading if you're striving on a path of trying to be more like the Lord. This one's tough to take on. So just keep that in mind, friends. Don't hurt yourselves.
Why do you think it's difficult to take on?
For me,
because he's dealing
patiently with the ignorant and erring is not my strong suit.
Yeah.
No. The weakness part, I think I have learned how to deal with that part of things a little bit better in my life. But being patient when...
Yes, you don't suffer fools well.
No, not really. It depends. Actually, though, that's a whole thing for me, which we're not going to get into. This isn't counseling.
But hold on, don't you think though, if you keep in mind how patient the Lord's been with you and your ignorance and your erring, then you're like, all right, he's been like that with me. So then it just kind of naturally.
That's where the depends comes in, because for me, it's whenever, like, when I can see for somebody that they are lacking in experience or formation or something along those lines, I am able to be a lot more forgiving of that. But there are certain people that I hold to a certain standard of, like, they have education, formation, they should have the experience because they're at a certain level or whatever. Those are judgments on my part that I need to release in order to let go of, like, it's who is the ignorant and erring, I think, is what makes the difference for me about where my patience is or is not.
You get higher expectations of people.
But expectations are going to set you up for disappointment which
all the time.
Judgment. It's not good. But I also want to say, if anybody has ever heard of biblical storytelling, have you heard of this?
I mean, I know what stories are in the Bible.
No, so it's a practice where these professionals are trained in how to share Scripture in a way that would be more like the earliest days of sharing it.
Like oral proclamation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It's the way I try to read the gospel.
And I had a biblical storyteller come in to do this reading for a group, and when she called out as blind Bartimaeus, it startled the whole room, and it was kind of hilarious because you imagine, like, everybody's, it's kind of like the rumble of the crowd and whatever, and then she just, like, yells out. And I was in Baltimore at the time, and Archbishop Laurie was at the parish, and he was coming to see the room, but he could hear something was going on because she was telling the story, so he didn't want to interrupt. And then when she started to yell later, he came in and said, I was worried that you guys weren't okay in there.
That's funny.
I've done like a dramatic presentation of the Abraham and Isaac reading, and one of the things that I did was it said, God called to me, and I went, Abraham. That was the reaction of the entire group that was there. And then I sort of used like a little bit of license, and I said, I sort of play Abraham in this thing. I was like a one-man show kind of thing. And I said, here I am. I got a bigger laugh. I was like, this is going well. But yeah, so readings for this week, 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time. So check them out as you head to Mass. Christy, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was so fun, as usual.
Find
Awesome.
a godparent.
Yes, please.
It's not hard. Yeah, there's got to be somebody there who would be willing and able to
Here's
do
the
this.
thing.
Yeah.
Pray on it.
Yeah.
The Lord will reveal this person to you. Discernment will help.
For sure. And I'll pray for my godson Noah right now, who I love. So this has been Question of Faith. I'm Deacon Mike Hayes.
I'm Father Damien Ference.
And I'm Christy Cabanis.
And we'll see you all again next time.